I would, if I could, get you to rise for the invocation and the pledge of allegiance. Father, we thank you for this day and your blessings. We thank you for all you've done for us, and we ask now that you would go with us as we conduct your business, that it would be our citizens and be done in decency and order, and ask these things in Jesus' name.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On behalf of the board, we would like to thank you for coming tonight, participating in our hearing. Just some ground rule or just some housekeeping items. We do have a item that was continued from Tuesday board meeting that we have to briefly take care of. We're going to take no longer than 15 minutes on that item. Then we will have a presentation from the engineers, and then we will have public discussion on that. We have a drop dead certain time of 7 o'clock p.m. So we will close public comment approximately 6:45 to allow the board to make motions and have discussion. So with that being said, our first item is to request to consider a moratorium on citations related to storage boxes on the beach. At the meeting Tuesday, there was a motion and a second, and there was public discussion, and we didn't take a vote on that meeting or on that motion because it was presented during public comment, and so that's a vote be required. So now we will take if there's someone here who would like to speak to the motion that was not present Tuesday and not speak Tuesday, you can come forward and you have 3 minutes. And go to that microphone. Seeing none. Madam Clerk, could we restate the motion? You didn't have, the motion was to declare a moratorium on, and then the motion was by Commissioner Anderson, second by Commissioner John, to consider a moratorium on citations related to storage beaches or storage boxes on the beach. So is there any further board comment? See none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, nay. The motion fails 2-2. So we will vote nay. Now we will move to the main items on our agenda, which will start with an introduction and a presentation by Atkins Consultants. Mr. Greg Garrett and Caleb McClellan will be our presenters, and we would ask them to come forward.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to come and present to you this evening. We are going to do a brief presentation about the project development and environment or PD&E study for the South Walton Connector Road. Tonight's presentation is for the board's consideration for providing direction on how to move forward and provide a summary of the analysis. I am Gregory Garrett from Atkins. And so we will present a summary of the analysis of the study, the public and agency coordination that has occurred to this point, and then the summary impacts of the project through the results of that study. I'm going to turn over the initial part of the presentation to my coordinator, Phil McClellan, to get started.
Thank you so much, Greg. And thank you commissioners for your time.
Could you state your name?
Caleb McClellan, Atkins Engineering. So I wanted to start this presentation by kind of showing a map of what our project area looks like. In October 2018, the notice to proceed on the PD phase of the South Walton Connector project was adopted. The map shown defines the study area for our project. PD&E, as Greg mentioned, stands for Project Development and Environment, and it's the second step of a roadway study. This is the stage where data gathering, analyses, and documentation take place. Public involvement is included at this stage as well as later stages of the project. It's to keep the public informed and to gain helpful insights from residents. Walton County is committed to balancing the needs of the county with the tenets of pride, preservation, and conservation. Walton County has incredibly unique resources that are noted throughout the world, and as such, the county will proceed with this ideal at the forefront of its interactions and analyses on this project. Looking at the project history, we've had many studies that kind of address what's going on in our project area. The potential for connector roadway in this area has been discussed for many years. The latest two studies, including the Genesis study in 2006 and the Atkins study in 2016, were to evaluate existing and projected traffic conditions and provide recommendations to address mobility for users along County Road 38 corridor. And to this project itself, the primary purpose of the proposed South Walton Connector project is to enhance the local transportation network through connecting US 98 and County Road 38. Secondary purposes are to address congestion, improve emergency service and evacuation times, and increase the connectivity of the local multimodal transportation network. Several different factors are considered in the needs statement. These include transportation system linkages, emergency and evacuation services, different travel modes and their relationships, social demands, and consistency with local planning studies and documents. Each of these topics contributes to the need for analyzing potential transportation improvements in the project area. And if you'd like, the official purpose and needs statement for the South Walton Connector PD study is posted on the project website. In terms of the potential project benefits, the main three at the top are improving emergency access and network redundancy for emergency evacuation, getting life-saving ambulances to that area. Secondly, we have improved connectivity and safer access to schools, and further improved trail connectivity. Some of the alternative advantages, like I mentioned, include increasing network connectivity for travel options, emergency access and network redundancy, improved connectivity to local schools, removing trips along County Road 30A and County Road 395, improved trail connectivity, providing an additional fire break for a new corridor, and the provision of net benefit improvements, as well as the potential to remove trips from US 98. Some of the disadvantages that we are addressing and looking at include environmental impacts to Point Washington State Forest and its lands, impacts to wildlife and habitat, the temporary construction disruption, and the impacts on fire management routines in this area. In terms of project traffic, we have a few constraints that we're working with, including the scenic corridor requirements, of which 30A is, transportation system management strategies, seasonal traffic fluctuations, and heavy multimodal use in this area. In terms of the existing conditions, County Road 30A measured actual volumes of traffic up to 10,000 vehicles per day, which is operating at a level of service D as defined by FDOT in 2021. County Road 395 measured actual volumes up to 11,000, which is operating at a level of service C in 2021. And the congestion in this area are due to things like side friction, multimodal interaction, and development intensity. And to that last point, Walton County has the third largest growth rate in the state since 2010. And so that development intensity and people coming to the area is only going to kind of accelerate this pace of traffic congestion. In terms of the projected traffic, a potential north-south alternative could expect around 2,000 to 4,000 vehicles per day and would be operating at a level of service of B. And traffic has potential to be reduced on County Road 30A and 395, as well as the watercolor and Seacrest regions. County Road 30A is expected to experience a reduction in traffic levels up to 3,000 vehicles per day, with changes to directionality and balance through one of these north or south alternatives. I'm going to hand it back to my colleague Greg to wrap up the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Commissioners, for your time.
I'll just also note at this point in the presentation, if there's any, I don't know if the board usually does, but if you have any questions, or you want me to stop at any point in the presentation to address anything along the back, feel free. Happy to interact, it doesn't have to be just us talking. As part of any PDD study, you're going to have an extensive agency and public involvement process. It's one of the key tenets of why you do the PDD study is to determine, do you have public controversy, do you have agency and environmental controversy, and if so, how it will be addressed or mitigated. For this project, it began with an advance notification statement, which is a letter that is sent out through the state clearinghouse, which is the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, where they had notified all of the other agencies in the state and region that of the intent of the project and the purpose. We followed that up with an agency coordination workshop, which was done in 2019. I'm going to show you on the following slide all the different individuals that were invited to attend there. But that was to get their initial feedback from the agencies as their response to the project, their concern, so we could account for that in the design and solutions that were considered for the study. Then we went to an alternatives public meeting in 2019. As mentioned, there were two LRTP transportation planning organization meetings, and then we actually did an additional public survey to solicit further feedback from the community. As mentioned, this is the agency list. I'm not going to read all this to you, but these were all the different agencies that were brought to the agency meeting, and also in addition to, there were these plus many other that received the advanced notification package to provide feedback to the county, stating their concerns regarding the project. In any PDD study, you have to consider your reasonable range of alternatives. That must and has to begin with a no-go alternative, which is always carried through to the end of the study and remains a viable solution to be selected at the end of the study for some analysis. During the AN package, the advanced notification package I just discussed, there were 7 alternatives that were provided on the map for the agencies to consider and respond to. After that meeting was completed and we incorporated their feedback, it was reduced down to 6 alternatives, which was then presented to the public at the alternatives public meeting. And then this evening, what we will ultimately show you are the last 2 remaining viable alternatives that are being considered along with the what you see on the screen here is the map of the project study area and the project alternatives that were considered, again, at the AN package, advanced notification package sent to the agencies. As I mentioned, this included 7 alternatives, the first of which is along the east end, which would have been a new 2-lane road option through Deer Lake Park. Next was, these are 3 alternatives, because you can see on the southern end, they had 3 different termini along. But these alternatives were designed to represent something that would be close to the existing power line utility, but with an intent to avoid any natural features that were in the area. Then there were 2 other options that started near North Ryan. Like North Ryan Street. One again went up to the northeast, and again the lines are here trying to avoid known features within the park. And then one went over to County Road 395. And then the last option was considering the widening of County Road 395 from 2 to 4 lanes. All right. So I mentioned we sent out the advanced notification. This is just a bullet summary of a lot of the comments that we received back from the agency as a result of that letter. It was mailed out on March 8, 2019. As you can imagine, a lot of the comments obviously were in and around the state park and the effects to it. It included and primarily discussed bisecting the state forest. In that discussion, the bisection of the state forest was a lot of feedback from Department of Forestry and Lands about fire mitigation. Down below. And again, remaining comments that included things that discussed the coastal habitat fragmentation, impacts to wetlands and uplands, as well as concerns about cloudwood salamanders, and sandgrass. So after we had the advanced notification, we got their letters and were able to parse through that information. We held an agency coordination workshop. The purpose of this workshop was twofold. First was to continue to receive feedback from these agencies, as well as to get some public feedback at this time. There was a publicly attended meeting. But also for the county to begin proposing its possible mitigation measures and ideas for, again, when you saw, as Caleb mentioned earlier, that net decline goal, which if you're going to look to propose to do the road through Point Washington State Forest, that is sort of the standard that is required in order to obtain these through a state land, is that the mitigation of obtaining a net decline benefit once mitigated. And so at this meeting, county staff along with action staff spoke to the agencies about opportunities for mitigation that included adding additional conservation land in the western areas of Washington State Forest. It also discussed if it was going to be beneficial to have additional fire access roads, as it will require access points along the new road for, again, for fire management and emergency management within that area. I'm also going to skip down to the bottom of the slide here, where the county also illustrated its commitments to the agencies, which included an indefinite moratorium on development along the road. So from the beginning of the project, it was committed that if this road were built, no development would be allowed in any way, shape, or form along the road in any way within the state forest. It would be fenced and limited access. The potential roadway would also be closed. The county committed if there was going to be any prescribed burning activities. Because again, the Division of Forestry expressed concerns about being able to do fire control and fire management. And so the county committed at a time that if they needed to close the roads, that the Division of Forestry could do the prescribed burns. It was understood that that might be a hardship or inconvenience, that the road would have to be closed, and that let that take precedence. And then again, the net ecological benefit was just confirmed that the county understood the responsibility to mitigate to that standard. The agencies at this time commented and concerned that primarily they expressed at this meeting that they felt that the widening of County Road 395 was the option from which they believed would have the least impact to environmental features, obviously the least impact to the park. They expressed other concerns such as regional hydrology. This portion of Walton County is for water, so the requirement to treat the water quality and runoff is higher, and then habitat impacts. At the time, the public shared its thoughts as well, and at this time, they asked if we would consider an alternative east of Deer Lake Park to St. Joe property. They also talked about the concerns of setting a precedent of a new road through the forest, and that this might open the gates for further roads to be allowed or considered, and the associated development. And then, of course, the concerns about the fragmentation of the state land and the state of Washington. So after that meeting completed, we added one alternative, we eliminated three. I'm going to show you on the screen, they'll kind of fade off here. The first one is going to be the alternative that went through the park, Deer Lake Park. Through collaboration with agencies, they would not even let us into the park to do the analysis, to even go look at cultural resources or anything like that. So that option was no longer going to be viable or reasonable. So that was removed. As you can see, that termini in the southern end that just kind of clicked off and on and kind of straightened off from here, that also ends Deer Lake State Park. Therefore, for the same reason, it was removed. And then lastly, the alternative that runs to the northwest back over to 395. It was just too long an option through the park. It was going to have too much additional habitat fragmentation, as that was already illustrated as a concern, and was providing the least transportation benefit of your widening options. So there was not reason to do it. Then an alternative was added, and this went back to feedback from the agencies talking about prescribed burn and land management. And so we put it in alignment that stayed as much adjacent to the existing utility corridor in that area because it is already a fire break, it is already an existing impact. Putting your road adjacent to that was going to best align with the concerns we heard from the agency at that time. So the next map represents the alternatives that were shown to the public here in August of 2019. They are the same ones that I just described, so I won't go through that part again. I will just note that this is again what the next slide I'm going to summarize for you. This is what the public saw on Facebook. So, as mentioned, it was held in August of 21st of 2019. It was a very well attended meeting. We received at the meeting, not just in attendance, but just in comments, we received 220 overall comments. These were in the form of emails, spoken comments, comment cards. For the project, we had about 7% of the people that spoke at the meeting that night that were in support of the project. We had 85% of your attendees that night that provided comment in opposition to the project. The remaining percentages were either asking questions or neutral in their opinion at that time. A large percentage of the public comments supported looking at improvements along 38 itself over doing a new alignment to the state forest. We also received a letter as one of the comments at of the public meeting from the Walton County Fire Chief, where he expressed his support of the project to aid in the emergency service response time and further promote and protect the safety and welfare of the public in and around the county highway 38 area. It's important to note that part because again, I want to emphasize this. Caleb mentioned one of the key benefits of this. What it really comes down to is the ability to get access to emergency vehicles into the community that's constrained by 30A and out of the community, whether that's fire, ambulance, etc. That's a key issue, and that was one of the key points that the fire chief provided in the letter here. Again, you're going to see a bit of redundancy in the support and opposition, so I'm going to kind of go through it here, but then I'll blast through a little bit faster in the other slides. Overall comments and support, they looked at the idea of the improved emergency access, the evacuation times, the safer school crossings, and access to the schools as a result of the roadways, decreased congestion as a support comment, the improvement of the infrastructure capacity, and again, the redundancy of the roadway network provided by the new alignment option, and then the opportunity for further economic growth. Opposition, it was going to talk about impacts to the state forest. There was actually comments that expressed that they were worried that this might bring more congestion to 30A as a result of the access that this new road provided. And then one of the common themes you'll see over again is just opposition to the new road in support of looking at ways to improve 30A itself, such as alternative options like shuttles, park and ride, cars off of 30A, other ways to ease congestion. And then the last one is just the further fear of developments that might come along with this. After the alternatives public meeting was completed, we narrowed it down to two alternatives. One key thing that I'm not going to go back to the slides here, but when you last saw the map of C2 and D2, where it comes in now at Buzzway on the south end, we also had another tie-in down at the bottom that went towards the Aaron's Watch community. And there was just comment that was received at that time that was concerned about the impacts of that community and the division there. And it was not providing an additional transportation or environmental benefits to that tie-in. The typical section shown here illustrates a 150-foot wide footprint. So this would be the footprint of the impact. You'll notice that it has reduced travel lanes with 11-foot travel lanes. All of these were done to try and tighten up the footprint to make it have the least amount of impact in there. It also includes the 12-foot lanes in this path. Notice the presence of the fencing on either side of the typical section. When you put fencing on the side of the road, that means there is no access to it, therefore no development to be allowed. If you have your road fence, there's no way for cars to get in and off of it, roadway, driveway access, any of that stuff. This is just a further measure to illustrate the county's commitment to not allowing any development along the road. Last to note on this is that in the middle it's a public right of swale. But one of the other minimization efforts that we took was to try and make sure that we were compensating for all the water quality and runoff within the actual footprint of the typical section. What this provides is that you're not going to be looking at additional impacts from the need like drainage ponds that might have to be done outside of the typical section. There is floodplain compensation that would be needed as a part of the study, and sometimes ponds are used as compensation for that. But overall, this was one attempt to further mitigate and minimize the impact. All right, so after your public meeting, we had 80, 85, 87% that were opposed to the project. In the NEPA world, that constitutes what we would call public comment. As a result of that, the county and staff and our team wanted to make sure that we were getting a full and complete representation of the residents' opinion on the project. As a result, we were able to distribute the survey from August to October of 2022. This was announced through the county website. It was announced at the county commission meeting. It was also included in packets that were sent at the South Walton Middle School, sent home to the kids, let them know there was a survey, parents know there was a survey. It was very well represented, 630 responses to a transportation survey is quite robust. From this, you had 309 votes that came in support of the project, 347 votes that came in opposition. And you can see the notes on there, but the support votes were split as discussing purposes between options C and D. General support remained consistent. Alleviate traffic, improve redundancy, improve travel times, look at hurricane evacuation. The concerns also remain fairly consistent effect on wildlife, state forest, wetlands, habitat recommendations, etc. There was also 2 additional meetings that were held where this project was specifically discussed and public comment was specifically received on the South Walton Connector project. This occurred at the 2045 LRTP TPO meetings. They were in October and December of 2021. The numbers again seen here, this project was discussed amongst other projects that were included in the long-range transportation plan. The 347 responses taken here were those that were specific to this project. 189 of those responses were in support of the project. 131 of them were not. 27.8% remains neutral or looking for more clear information. The support and opposition, again, consistent, alleviate traffic, improve travel times, access, and then concerns about development, natural impacts to the Washington State Forest, and again, iterating the favor for improvement again. So at the beginning of the study, Keller went over potential project benefits. He listed those top 3. Because of the importance of these benefits, because of the importance of making sure the message is communicated, we've got some visual illustrations that are just going to take you through what those are and how they would carry out and some of the presentation purposes. I'll do it the other way.
This animation shows that a new connection would provide faster times for emergency services for the project area by reducing the amount of trips along County Road 30A and County Road 395. Alternative D2 was used for illustrative purposes for this example. Note that these travel times were approximated using posted speed limits traveling in a free flow situation and do not account for the actual congestion present on the roadway. As such, this represents the most conservative estimate of this potential new improvement.
I just want to emphasize the last point that the other Craig in our office, his voice is, he was heard. That conservative estimate, 20 versus 23 minutes, understand that that reflects taking a car that would be traveling down 30A with no other cars on, interrupting it, no traffic lights, you're just going close to speed limit, uninterrupted the entire time. I think you all live here and understand this, but we certainly know this from the traffic studies that it's not a situation on County Road 30A, nor is it a reasonable expectation. So again, when we give these time trial minutes, it gives the best chance for staying on 30A to show how it might compare to the bill solution. Dissimilar to that, the traffic projections going out to 2045 for the new road would expect to travel at explosive speed uninterrupted, and the travel speeds on US 98 largely remain at their explosive speed with a higher level of service.
Routes that families have to take to travel from County Road 30A to Emerald Coast Middle School and the new Dune Lakes Elementary. The first path also illustrates the unfavorable left turn movement that has to cross US 98 traffic to enter the school. The second path shows a different route to the east that allows for a safer right turn into the school, but requires a longer route. If a new connector roadway were to be approved and constructed, The access to the local schools would be improved, and safer crossing options would be available. Again, alternative D2 was used only for illustrative purposes for this example.
And then one last slide.
This animation illustrates a potential trail loop that could be provided if a new connector roadway were to be approved and constructed. Walton County has also entered discussions regarding the proposed trail north of 98 along the electric transmission line property. Should these trails be constructed, it would provide a 12-plus mile multi-use trail loop, the first of its kind in Walton County.
All right, I'm sure hoping I don't read this part to you. So this is the evaluation matrix, it's what the study culminates in, it's sort of the table that represents the cumulative results of the analyses. What you'll see there again is the no-build option is shown along with alternative C2 and D2. I will not, you have in front of you the table and the numbers. I will try to summarize as best I can. Alternative C2 represents what's going to be the best minimization option to avoid wetlands, floodplains, other environmental features, while trying to stay as close as possible to the existing utility right away. Alternative D2 is going to represent the option that stays along the adjacent to the existing utility right away for as long as it possibly can, stands the movement to connect back to the US 98 and County Road 38. That's kind of the bottom line option. In terms of your cost differences, they are about the same. One thing that I will note is at the bottom, it notes right-of-way easement and mitigation costs. With this going through a state park, you're not purchasing the land from the state, you would be obtaining easement. Nonetheless, the standard with the Acquisition and Restoration Council is to require 1.5 times market value of the land in order to purchase the rights to that easement. And so that would represent, if we were doing this from just a right-of-way cost estimate, in the vicinity of $4 million in those easement costs. There's then additionally mitigation costs, and then the mitigation to attain the net ecological benefit, which could include further land swaps or other mitigation options. I'm going to click to the next slide, but this is probably another time where I should ask the board, is there any other particular data points or question that you have on this that you might want me to come to? Okay, thank you. All right, so we are at the point in the presentation tonight where we're going to kind of talk about the decision making. As I mentioned before, the purpose of this meeting is to obtain your feedback, your direction on where to go from here to finish up or continue the study. There are essentially two options. It is to identify and select a build alternative as a preferred alternative. This would be either in the form of recommending either C2 or D2 as one of the build solutions as the preferred alternative. Were that motion made and that was the decision of the board, the steps shown on the top right are go through what would be left to be done. So we are in phase 1 of this study. It's called the PEIR, which stands for Project Environmental Impact Report. If C2 or D2 were so moved to be the preferred alternative and to move forward with, we would finalize the phase 1 PEIR documents, recognizing that that was the preferred alternative. We would conduct a preferred alternative public meeting, not just a alternative public meeting, to obtain one more round of feedback on that singular solution as the identified preferred option moving forward. And then at a future time, when the county identified that it was ready to move forward and when funding was available, the phase 2 portion of the PDD study would commence. That phase 2 would include several components. One would be updating your data and analysis. Again, when you're going to be going back to the agencies, they're going to want surveys that were done more recently. Same thing with the traffic numbers, they would just be updated within the existing model of the area. It is possible that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service would request formal consultation, which means that they would then be asking for a biological opinion on this. The precedence for this was State Road 292, Columbia County, is a similar project winding through Community State Park, where they performed that same request. I'm not saying they will here, I'm saying there is that chance. Planning consistency is part of every study. You guys have that as a comp plan, and you just have to update things to make it consistent. Finally, we would take the natural resource environmental document that will be circulated to the agencies for their concurrence findings, and then we begin the acquisition and restoration council process, which is the formal process where the county would submit the application to FDEP and the trust that they represent in these lands to begin that mitigation process, making sure that their management plan works with the mitigation plan the county was proposing, and a net ecological benefit was obtained to offset the impacts of the roadway to the water. And then from there, you finalize other studies. Post PUE kind of becomes the same, right? It's design, permits, right away, and then go to construction. Should the board move tonight that the no-build option is the preferred alternative as a result of this study and what's been illustrated to you this evening, that would conclude the study. There would be no further analysis. There would not be the need, obviously, for agency coordination on the no-build action. We would finalize the documents for you and wrap up the study. An important thing to note about the no-build solution. This doesn't mean that if you make this decision tonight that it is a no-build solution, that the study is dead. You spend money and now it's just a paperweight or something sitting on the shelf. Should at a future time circumstances change or the board have a different sentiment or there be different public opinion, for whatever reason, if you want to pick it up again, these studies are constructed in a manner so that you may start it again at a later time and fund it for its future phases. And again, you just have to review your data to refresh the data that's in there. But the public process that you went through, everything you accomplished would still remain relevant and not stale. You would have to do one more additional public meeting to notify your citizens that you were reinitiating the project, but we still have that option. So I just want you to understand, you're kind of not on a dead end with either one, but I want you to understand that that's what it is. So we're kind of at the point where we're going to ask for suggested direction. On the following slides, I'm sure you guys got this, the enclosures will be equivalent, right? These are suggested language for motions that could be presented from any commissioner this evening. Note that the words in here are not meant to make you read some really long wall of text and paragraphs. It's just to recognize in writing the different commitments the county has already made at different meetings and the potential benefits and concerns and differences between the project. The summation of this motion is essentially that alternative C2 as the option which provides the best avoidance of natural features while staying close to the utility right away would be moved forward as the preferred alternative. The second one, D2, essentially says the same thing. It just recognizes that D2 does not, it is the one that hugs most closely to the utility right away easement and provides a better solution in terms of concerns about fire management and the bisection of the habitat in the study area. Just real quick, this is that slide I showed you before, but simpler. So if you were to select C2 or D2 as the preferred alternative, this is essentially the process that lies before the county to complete how they get to construction. The no-build option is just that. It will be based on the feedback the board so moves to go with no-build, and if you were to do that, this would be the eventually the end of the study.
Now we would ask the board, would you prefer to make motions now, or would you prefer to wait until after public comment to make motions?
And again, if you have any questions along these lines.
Are there any questions?
After public comment.
So, we need to move that back. We're gonna take, here's how we're gonna take this public comment, because we have a very limited time frame. So what we're gonna ask you to do, if you wish to comment, to line up the feet behind one of the two microphones. We will take you in alternating fashion. And we ask you, and we are going to be very strict on 3 minutes, both in respect to the other people who would like to speak and to make sure we can serve our time. So at 3 minutes, I'm going to cut you off, no matter what if you're in the middle of a thought or what. That's not for any other reason than do exactly what I said, preserve everyone's opportunity to comment. So, there's a clock right there. Watch it carefully, because the 3 minutes we're gonna get with it. Okay? So with that being said, we'll start here, and move here to here in alternating fashion. One other thing, please announce your name to the clerk.
Celeste Covino. And one of the things that struck me through this whole process of watching it is the alternatives. And I think you have, at this point, got to go with the no-build alternative. I'm not sure how much money the county has spent on this. You've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you've not given a total amount. I asked about that and never got an answer. But you're looking at spending God knows how much more money on this study to continue, and then going to the Art Council. You have already heard from all of the agencies that sit on that Art Council, and they all said no, absolutely not. And so you are going to waste a lot of citizens' time, a lot of our taxpayers' money, continuing studying this road that you'll never get. And I don't know who was here in 1992 when the county tried to take 3,000 acres of the state forest and parks when it was purchased. And in 1996, I don't know how much the county spent on that effort. You got the 400 acres in a settlement agreement and a lawsuit. And so I just have to ask, how many more of our taxpayer dollars are going to be wasted on this effort? I've been through that process. I saw it back in the 90s. And wasted time and money. And the Art Council said, no, we are not going to, and the governor and cabinet said, no, we are not going to give 3,000 acres to the developers and the county. And that's what you're going to find here too. And I've got a suggestion for you. Y'all keep ignoring the fact that you can put a road on St. Joe's property on their western boundary up against Deer Lake State Park. There's already a dirt road there. I don't understand, because Bay County is getting land and money from St. Joe for their developments and for their roads. You need to ask St. Joe for that property and say, this road is not going to decrease any traffic, it's going to increase, because all of the development that St. Joe's putting in Bay County and north of 98 is going to flow down to 38. And that's all you're going to get. And I want to say, well, I got 10 more seconds. Commissioner McCormick, when you campaigned, you stood in front of the Point Washington State Forest sign and said, I will protect Point Washington State Forest. So keep your word.
I'm gonna say this for one, not just take, not waste time, no planting, period, will cut off public comment.
Thank you, Robert Murphy. This is Green Beach. I've been a resident of Walton County since 1977, and I participated in a trust that we had in the 90s. And it was very clear that everybody that we want Walton County to become South Walton County. And hands down, everybody wanted to protect the forest and the parks. They did it. That's the who's this lane the golden egg came off. And to bisect that time, our bicycle was enjoying the forest. I lived with him. He was saying that the difference, we talked about this road back then, that there was probably 38. He said if you bisect the forest, you isolate areas where they can burn and can burn, and when it's too small for them to manage, the forest service itself will take it away. And a lot of people look at this as a mechanism to break the forest up so that they let go some portion of it. And as you can see since 1990, every piece of private land all along 98 and South Walton being developed. This county does not have the infrastructure for that. Since this customary use on the beach has a limited area being a tourist mecca. The state forest and park is equally important, if not more important for the future. I just think, don't divide the greenway community, even if you put this road in and you put fences in, you keep the developers out, you also keep the critters out, the deer and the wildlife from having a part of that. We talked about a greenway all the way from the beach to the bay, so that we can keep what's pristine about South Walton. So, I know it's a problem, it's a serious problem, I don't know what the answer is, but bisecting the state forest and the park on what you call this, I just think that you ought to think hard and long before you say you're going to cut it down. Because unintended consequences are obvious all over this country. The only other thing I'd like to say is, what really needs to be done in this area is hydrological studies so you know how the ground works. You can see from a lot of the road we put in on the bay side, west of 331, there's flooding. We don't understand the hydrology. Take some of this money that you're putting into this study, get the state geological survey to do something so we know what we can do, what we can't do. Do it intelligently, please.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
I would just like to, I think there's a little bit of, I see, the answer is simple answer. Tim, which road? Did I get PPR? Yeah, I was thinking it's a good, that's one nice teaching at the morning, it's a simple yes or no answer, that take a 20-minute to look through this course. Let this goes out to start with. Give one of you. I show up at your house with an E9 cab and 15 people, and I'm saying, I'm gonna cut a road around your house, do your yard, whatever. I got it done, got a full of asphalt, I roll around it. We got a problem with that.
Sir, we're not answering the question.
Pardon?
We're not going to answer.
You don't have to answer, I said I don't expect you to answer. I think I can answer it for you. It'd be a definite no. Why? It's not money. It won't be. Understand that. You guys, this is a county issue. We're making it with a few hundred people. This forest doesn't belong to anyone here in this county. It belongs to 22.2 million people in the state of Florida. It's not a county issue. It shouldn't be 6 people sitting on a panel from a county deciding what we're going to do with the state forest. I'll take one more thing. We're on the beach. You got a place on the beach, beautiful place on the beach, you go to your property, that's fine. I come along and say, I'm gonna walk to the beach, I'm gonna make it 25 years hard, by one side of the house. You're gonna say definitely no. I understand it's private property. The other answer is gonna be, I need to play the beach. Oh, we have public access. You're right, we got public access, but I'm gonna go here. It's gonna be over here. Last I checked, 38, 98, 98, back to 38, you've got access. Why would make them 18 lanes out in here? You go wrong in Deer Lake Park, I looked at the map, that's public. It may not be cut off what you want, it's gonna cut off an awful lot. Don't stay there. It's private land, somebody's gonna have to give up some $5 land, or you're gonna have to pay some $5 land to get that through there. But that's an alternative. The bottom line is, it doesn't belong to the county. It shouldn't be up to 6 people up here to decide that they have a state force that belongs to 22 million people. I'm good.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Laura Morano. With all due respect to the Adams Engineering Company, trying to cure traffic congestion with more capacity is like trying to cure obesity by loosening your belt. A recent email from the group Walton County Politics states traffic congestion has drastically reduced. How is welcoming over 300,000 people from the new St. Joe development lessen congestion on 38? You may think this connection will be an easy access. Listen to that. 98 is already over capacity on the new 3-lane highway going east into Miramar developers must start paying their fair share right now. In my conversations with the county level commissioners, especially when I argue against rezoning for more density, I hear that South Walton has 46% of land in the state forest. You aren't right, we do, because there's fearless citizens right here who fought for that state land. So yes, we have 40% state land, we want to keep 46%. Getting children to school, we don't have bus drivers. That's why we have all these people on the road. And I chuckle when you say you gave a survey to the school children. Of course, they're going to take it home to their parents, and of course, the parents want the road. But they'll be sitting on that road, just like they're sitting on 98, because they don't have school bus drivers. So why going into the state forest is not going to solve our school issues? Safety? Yes, we need safety. We need lighted crosswalks on 38. How many yes, and we have deaths on 38 because the crosswalks are not lit. And if we want them, we have to pay $14,000 for them. What about mandatory lights on rental bikes? And as far as the fire, we can get an EMS station here with no problem. At the Okaloosa TPA organization, the Walton County Commissioners and the Councilman for Funiac Springs placed the connector road as the future improvement. The road now is in Walton County infrastructure list with a tune of $15 million for construction at today's prices. The new mission statement voted on by Commissioner McCormick, Bill Barr, and Nick is to efficiently and effectively serve the citizens of Walton County. A safe environment, a sustainable economy, while preserving our quality of life and natural resources. Increasing traffic without creative ways to improve our quality of life and natural resources doesn't fulfill our mission in Walton County. We're supposed to be the premier county in which to live, visit, work, and play. Remember, commissioners, that trying to cure traffic congestion on overcapacity is trying to cure.
Ms. Maloney, your time's up, thank you.
Thank you, and no bill, no bill.
Ms. McQuiston?
Yes, thank you, Commissioners Bonnie and Christian. Point Washington State Forest was purchased in 1992 with P2000 funds and gifted to Walton County for preservation, not for future development. It was a gift of immeasurable value, where today it defines Walton County with its unique character of natural environment along our beaches. Before the ink was even dry on the state land purchase, in the effort to get thousands of acres back for development, the county commissioners jumped on board to get land back for the tax rolls. It took us 6 years to get the South Walton Conservation and Development Trust Plan and implemented by Walton County. Today, we see that the only green left south of the bay is the state land. With development sprawl, every piece of development property is bulldozed, clear cut, and stripped of every blade of green. There is only state land left for our wildlife. It is unconscionable and unacceptable to consider bulldozing, clear cutting, and paving our state forests. This road will be simply a convenient shortcut to Highway 98. It is not necessary for hurricane evacuation. The center of that stretch of 38 is only 3 miles from Highway 395 to the west and 3.5 miles to St. Joe's Road to the east. With today's technology, we know a week or more ahead of time to evacuate for a hurricane. We could have 10 connector roads and still the bottleneck will be at 331 going north. As for the fire district, they need to build a fire station on 38. Robert Davis owns 3 acres of land exactly where this proposed new road will come out on 38 on Bud Lane. Minded citizen, he can donate, lease, or sell that property to the fire district. Or St. Joe has property on their district road, which they can get for sell for a fire station. If we allow our forests to be clear cut, divided, and covered with asphalt, it is only the beginning. I have seen Robert Davis's plans for parking lots on state land and paid trade, ecotourism, autonomous vehicles. We have fought for 30 years to keep our state forests intact. Time after time, the same surface to destroy our state land. If this Point Washington forest is divided, there will be more roads and more development. Developers are standing in line to get their piece of the forest. And now our county commissioners are carrying the water for developers like Robert Davis and St. Joe. We need only to follow the money trail to see what is actually. This road will be the beginning of the end of Point Washington State Forest. Do the right thing and vote no now. Vote to end this abominable road through Point Washington.
Before, sir, please keep those signs down so that the people behind you can see. Yes, sir.
My name is Scott Rollins. I've lived here for, I guess, 12 years full time. And I don't want anybody to ever cross the road. I love it here, but it's just not that. And it's kind of idiotic. I'm surprised about what I'm here by 8 or younger. Because.
Raise the microphone, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
It's an echo.
But that's I said I was surprised about what other people here. The fact is, it's a 30 minutes parking lot. It just is, and we need somebody to get those cars off of 30 And we already have roads that have not realized this right out here, and I respect that, but there's already roads that we're moving forward. I live on Day Drive, I go down to 3 years. I presume it's been there longer than the years I've been here. There's no houses on it, so it's a state park. And as much as I would like to think that we're good, nobody's gonna come here with us, it should be great. It's just not gonna happen. So I am for the road. I think that maybe we should take a step back at how we're approaching this. There's very clear-cut issues here. There's the issue of the environment and the impact of the environment on the I agree that every single thing that's not forestry got a house on it, and now we've got forest here. But I do believe that there's an opportunity for us to do this the right way. Because my concern is that if we don't, that maybe one day we will become an issue. Because, we have some houses burned down this summer in South Beach, and maybe there needs to be maybe some more bus drivers. I mean, but there's not. And they're running ads all day, every day for them. So I think if we could somehow figure out a way to make everybody comfortable with it, is say, well, nobody wants to have a bunch of houses going down deep to where it's called. I don't see why there would be. There's not on 33 or 395. So how can we do this the right way? We can make this an opportunity to not only create a road that gives us safer access, or not. I think I agree with you that way. But I think there's a safety issue. We saw it after your houses were down. So, and if there's issues getting kids to school, not everybody has kids anymore, but it's tough. And, it's a parking lot. We need a solution. So maybe there's a way to do it the right way. Do it the right way. Take these 5 people that I have to very much be agree with a lot of levels and do it the right way. If we make this a beautification, we do something that makes it better, at the same time we're living in This is coming, no matter what. I mean, we're going to have this issue. We're going to have more people no matter what we do. It's just inevitable. So let's try to do it together and do it right. Thank you very much.
Sir?
Yes, my name is James Foley. I'm the past president of the Historical Point Washington Association. Now I'm on the board. Flag preservation and conservation, right on the flag. Got a Carney Town over that way. We've got an overdeveloped thing going the other way. And I think by trying to make everything right for automobiles is exactly the wrong way to go. We don't have enough land here. The roads are too narrow. We have animals running, bears, deer, possums, otters, everything. That's what makes this place special, very special. That's what people come here to see. What I think you need to be spending money on, everybody's off at parking thing at outside of Brayton would not work. It works very, very well now. Lots of people park their cars there, they get the shuttle, they go to the beach, they go to the seaside, they do the shopping, and they come back. More places like that would take the load off for people to come here, do their shopping, and all that stuff. Without cutting into the forest, which is gonna basically hook in the folded egg of the goose. It's just ridiculous, it's absurd, I can't even believe I'm still in another one of these meetings. And Mr. McCormick, I do remember when you came and talked to my group years ago, when you were running, you promised us this would not happen. You keep coming. You keep talking. One gentleman says that there has to be a smarter way to do it. The smarter way to do it is don't do it. Get parking for the folks. Stop monster houses. Pretty much it. Thank you.
Sir.
Good evening. My name is Neil O'Connell, OCO in ELL. I'm here to speak in favor of the road. I wanted to touch on just a couple of points here. Keep emotion out of it. Just want to touch on some basic facts. First one has to do with the route of option D2, where it follows the existing power line from 38 all the way to 98. Power line isn't the only thing that's in that easement. There's also an 18-inch water line dug through that section of that easement about 20 years ago. That's regularly maintained by the water. So, insofar as access to and through that section of state forest, underneath that power line within that easement that is not pristine forest, that is actually an existing utility easement. So if there was a place to put a road, that would be most common sense place to put it. The second topic I want to discuss has to do with roads in general. There's a misconception that creating a road, you're going to create traffic. The truth is that roads do not create traffic. Roads don't create cars. Okay, so I used an example before, metaphor maybe most people can understand. If you're at Publix on Saturday during high season and there's one checkout lane open, and there's 100 people in line, you open another line at the checkout line, 100 people automatically appear in the store. After those people are going to go to that other line, it's going to reduce the traffic. In Walton County, it's going to reduce traffic on 30A. It's not going to create traffic, it's going to reduce traffic. The third point has to do with public safety. At another road, at this location, you're going to reduce traffic and congestion at the intersection of Walton Parkway and Highway 98, which is an area that's prone to traffic accidents. It's where the bottom ones. You're going to reduce congestion at the intersections 30A and Walton Parkway. You're also going to reduce congestion and potential for traffic, including cars, humans, and bicycles at 30A, 395, as well as 395 and Highway 98. So by holding this road, you are improving public safety at 4 known problematic traffic intersections. So, insofar as what this project ultimately provides, is a huge public benefit.
Sir.
My name is Hunter Harlan. I want to first say thank you to the acting group for putting this Hunter Harman, Harman. Just wanted to say thank you to the acting group for putting this together. Very informative. I'm coming before you to actually say that I'm for this. A lot of folks that are not here tonight that actually are for this. This is a desperate need for our community. This emergency road is important to us. I'm going to ask you to please vote for it and move this down the line. I believe that we will get it done down the road, so please vote for it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Sir.
My name is Terry Shipman, and I'm for the project, for D2. My very friend, O'Connell, said,
B2 is already disturbed. It has power line through it. It has regional utilities like Franklin, which is water line, with sewer. There's trucks that go down there to maintain that equipment. We have a problem. I can't remember last time I went to a planning commission meeting, there was a discussion about development where the argument was, well, gee, we don't have enough infrastructure in this county. So now you're talking about expanding the infrastructure to take care of the traffic. Now they want to complain about the infrastructure. Development will not occur because of this road. You can't sell forests. In order for the state forest to be sold, the internal improvement trust fund would have to approve it, which means the government would have to approve it, which is never going to happen. And if it was going to happen, this road has nothing to do with it. Traffic is not going to increase because you put this road in, it will be the opposite of what it is. Right now, the biggest congestion on 38 is the area between Eastern Lake and Freedom Island, and this will take care of that volume. This whole reason is the river. Was you were trying to just dig up and destroy the forest, not do this. I had to drive through the state forest with lights. And the house, the road that I drive on, because through the state forest, was built, I believe, in 2002. It's not like this is like this. Marcel Parkway was built up at the time as well. I would ask the commission to vote for this, and I'd ask them to vote for B2, and I would suggest to you that most people that are for this, and there's a lot of them, feel like they aren't going to come here, I almost didn't, because they have other things to do. I came in there to speak because I believe it was a talk we hear from us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My name is Reynolds Henderson. I'm a resident of the Watertown Orleans, which is the same development. Hold that again. I just want to say, I've been living down here for 19 years. I've got 2 children I'm raising here. I love this community. Some of you know that I'm doing stuff all over the community, all over the county, Pediatric too. And, I stand nothing, there's no benefit to me. I don't live into that road. I just know that we have a massive problem with what went on in the past before any of you commissioners were elected. The development was not thought out properly. We're in a mess here. And we got to do something about it. We have a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built, and it needs to be paid for. And we tried to get the 1 cent sales tax passed, and didn't. So we have to look at other options. We have to do this. People are not going away. So I'm for this road, and I don't care which option. I think it needs to be the least impact environment, and that seems like going down the existing transmission line needs to be the best way to do it. It's not going to be any future development because the state is not going to allow some developer to come in and develop their land. I think there's other options for reducing traffic, like pay for parking. Maybe the county could look at a plan where they actually charge people to park instead of having free parking all over 38. Because we have a massive amount of cars on the side. They just park in curves and everything, and they're getting for free. Let's make them pay for it. Maybe it can help offset some of the costs of these things. But doing nothing is poor leadership in my mind. It's passionate for everybody. We all care about the state board. It's a huge asset for us. But like Mr. Shipman just said, St. Joe just built a road in recent times on private land. If this was private land, we wouldn't be talking about it. So this is minimal impact. Something's already been disturbed. I hope you will support this. I hope you'll take a stand, the right stand for people that live in this county. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
First of all, thank the contractors who put together this and got this in and out of possible options for the connector road. makes the situation very well. Unfortunately, I was a bit short of showing what the real picture is. And by that, I mean, you look at one in 38 and the other, 6 or 7 connected, several which go through parks already. And I don't know in any of those that development will not be in forest land. So I'm not worried about that. And it, I know that's those, I think it's that's the state for approval, so it's not on the hands of this commission. I need. The other thing, the connector roads that do exist, there's usually about a 2 to 4 mile separation between them. So people that live along 38 that need to get out quickly, especially in emergency situations, have a reasonable distance to travel. Between 395 and South Walton Sound Park, I believe it's a little bit over 6 miles. And I can tell you that is a public safety hazard for emergency medical situations and probably fire situations as well. So that's what I earlier. I have a specific example. My next door neighbor's son was here visiting and had a medical emergency. And South Walton rescue responded. They left, went down 38, which is the shortest distance, it's beyond 5, going to Sacred Heart. The parents went east down the South Walton Sound Parkway, by their camp, about 10 minutes before the ambulance did, and the son passed away. So I think it's imperative that we put another connector road on safety reasons, obstruction traffic, and I think that it's approved, at least in the last survey I heard, it was a 2-to-1 in favor of the connector road. So I think at this point, it's imperative that we do that, and I would suggest that we vote on D2, because it appears to be the least disruptive or undisturbed one in the ways in the solid along the line of spent development already. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Rebecca Baker. I've lived here for a long time. I participated in surveys. One thing I haven't heard out of this group or in any of the paperwork is how much has this cost to date? And also, how much is it going to cost to mitigate and build? I'm surprised we would spend more money on another survey and study without knowing what we're getting into and how expensive it is. So I think as county residents, we're owed that information before you proceed with our money further. Second, I hear a lot of talk about whether this is going to help traffic or not. I've been reading a lot about this, and yes, it helps traffic at the beginning when you add a road, and then within 2 years, from what I've read, it goes back to what everything else is. So if we're going to continue to spend money on this project, I think we need to answer that question, is it really going to help or not? And I'm not hearing any solid answers from any of you. Number 3, environmental impacts. I don't really get a clear understanding of the environmental impacts that we're discussing. I'm not seeing that coming through on any of the information. Number 4, I keep hearing different talk about, are the residents in favor or aren't they? Have you ever done a survey of the county? I know we get a lot of information from Walton County. It seems to me like everybody ought to get a written survey with the cost, past, present, and future, with proof of how it will impact our traffic, and then what the environmental impacts are before we go any further. Thank you.
You, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to speak for just a couple of minutes. Carol Mazonia, ZORA. I know you're in a very difficult position and those concerned about safety here, but one point I want to make is in 10 years, we won't be driving the same way we're driving now. And I would ask you to vote no on building this road and please dedicate money to public transit. That's the way to decrease traffic, especially the tourists who are coming here are used to using public transit in the towns that they're coming from. If we provide things like that, it's going to decrease the traffic. Folks are not going to be driving the same way in 10, 20 years. There's already 16 miles of trails in Point Washington Hills, the red and orange trails together. And anybody who wants to go back there and ride them, you have to be a guide. Protect the forest, please, commissioners. You'll never get this back. Thank you.
Commissioner,
Thank you, sir.
thanks for your time. My name is Buzz Livingston, that's B-U-Z, with one Z. Just a minute, we're talking about spending more money on the state. And you and I talked a few weeks ago, Danny, about about financing. Why don't we use the money that we're spending right now to fix some of the problems that we already have? I don't think it's a boondoggle, but it'd be a better use of our money to do that. To take the money that we're spending on this study, another study, we don't know how much it's gonna keep on and on and on. A road through the forest is not going to alleviate traffic. It's gonna create more traffic on 38. We think 38 is just gonna be that way. Heck, following up with what Carolyn Zoning said, there are trails already in the forest. I probably walk as many of them as anybody in here. I don't see that particular benefit. There are some things that we can work around safety as far as fire stations in different places. I agree with that. But right now, it's not cost effective to spend additional money on another study. Let's stop spending the money now, use that money to fix sidewalks in places that need them. There are plenty of places that need sidewalks, 395 needs sidewalks. We can use the money more effectively to solve the problems that we've got now. And I've heard some people say, well, I'm here to speak for the people who are for the road who can't come. Well, guess what? I'm coming here to speak for the people who are against that road who can't come. There are a lot more of those, I think, than are for the road. So thank you for your time. I appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Charles Galloway, GALOWAY. Thank you all, commissioners. Thank everybody for coming. This is a really tough decision. It's extremely tough. I watched this issue play out my entire life living here. This is a lot of my neighbors here, very passionate about it. I was very passionate about this issue, still am. However, I think the main thing that switched me, I actually do support this road, is public safety. We do have a public safety problem, and we have a responsibility to, citizens and the tourists, that we're inviting to come here. There's a lot of stories about heart attack calls up Lakewood Drive, and ambulances can't get to them in time. The fire chief has gone on record saying that, this road is needed as far as the first responders. But I do think we do have to put public safety first. If you drive down 98, there's a road every 1.8 miles until you hit 395, and then the gap between 395 and Watertown Parkway is like 8 miles. So common sense says, there's a road every 2 miles. And, we all know, I think any second grader went on that map and said, where should the road go? We all know that. I love the state forests. I'm in them a lot. I want to protect them, but we have to do what's best for the safety. A lot of concern about the wildlife, which is totally understandable. One suggestion I would have is, I think NC Davis did this with the conservation plan of 31 or underpasses under it. If you can drive up to 31, you can see them. So I think there's solutions that everybody can live with. I think it'd be more proactive if we can find a way to work together on this. Another thing about the wildlife concern is we allow suntanning right now in the same woods, in Washington State Forest. So, I find that interesting. Everybody's worried about the deer and not let people know shooting rather than worrying about the road. $395, $283, $83, $393, these are all of those going to the same place. Well, my main suggestion is that I think there's a way that everybody can, and I'd like to see everybody working together rather than say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Allie Page, ALIPAGE. I will keep it short and sweet. Thank you guys for coming. I was going to piggyback off of a gentleman that was speaking, the little boy that passed away. That is a huge concern of mine. I live off of Lakewood Drive. And I just have 4 children, and that is the on my mind. What if I need something? Are they going to be during spring break when it's packed? That demonstration y'all did where it's 3 minutes after the Sacred Park. 3 minutes could save a lot. The roads I vote for the B2, where the power line is correct for we're not doing much damage. There's been something that I said for the wildlife where I like will pass through. So for that, I just speak for the safety of the tourists that come and also the families that actually live here, but we are road members. Thank you.
Sir.
My name is Eric Salas. One thing I realized in the meeting was in the beginning of a lot of data and studies done on the roads and traffic, but the data and studies that are missing, that I'm seeing from actual wildlife. I am a filmmaker, and for the last 2.5 years, my team has been on Panhandle. My job for the last 2.5 years has basically been to live in Washington State Forest, Great Beach State Park, Fossil Hill, all the parks here. I spend over 7,000 hours in the woods, usually 12 to 14 hours a day. In order to do our job, we have to learn to track the animals and study more animals there, to track the genome about the last 2 years, all the way down to the salamanders, the small animals, the snakes, and what I can tell you unequivocally, and I can show you, is that these animals have no problem with dirt roads, but we do not find them near paved roads. A lot of this is the increase in traffic and noise, but also it does segregate home ranges, specifically the bears. We're seeing this a lot over toward Oregon, where they started clear cutting and was forcing a lot of the bear population south 98 into the state forest there. And so if you are talking about putting a road at B2, you are talking about segregating home ranges. When you're talking about black bears, the amount of food they can eat in the season determines their offspring. And a lot of times they will abort offspring if they can't find enough food. Another thing that I was really concerned about that hasn't been talked about, I was looking at this, and we're talking about B2 and C2. In this project, we have a lot of discussions with north of the bay with Margaritaville. They have actually been proposing putting an overpass over the trench that would end right there, which would be a direct thoroughfare from Margaritaville to that. I don't know if that's even something that's been planned, but I do know from what I've seen, I believe there's 170,000 residential units in parking lot putting up there. When we were filming up there, I did drive through a lot of the advertising Saul said visit the beach within 5 to 6 minutes, and it was all pictures of their day. I didn't see any pictures of Panama City Beach. So I think that studying that a little deeper is important, but also I'd be happy to talk to you about animal patterns that we studied and how roads do actually affect them and everything. Like
Thank you, sir.
Philip Henry, and I'm for the no vote option. And contrary to someone's belief, I actually do have something better to be doing right now. I have a 2.5-month-old son at home, and right now his bath time is actually finishing up, so he's about to be going to bed, and I could be reading him a book and helping him go to sleep. But I am here talking about not paving a road through the middle of the state forest. We've got 2 counties beside us, and there's probably nowhere in either of those counties that you can be and not hear traffic and not see cars. And I want to be able to take my son on walks through Point Washington, and I want to be able to get away from the traffic. We have one of the most beautiful counties, if not most beautiful counties in the state.
And if we just keep doing what the counties beside us have done, then we're just gonna end up like that. And I see that the fire chief is right behind me, he's gonna be talking, so I really believe that if we can get them stations on 30A, then we can get some of the best people in the state to all of these calls that they're getting. Call volumes are going up and up and up. I know I was a former firefighter, and there were plenty of calls that I wish that we could have gotten to quicker. But having stations on 30A, we put them there as quick as possible. And then putting a road through private land, which it looks like it's private land just east that we can build on, would be able to get them to the hospitals quicker as well. Also, I don't know what goes into it, but how can we get a hospital on the east end of the county? Even if you're sitting on 283 and you get a call at the Publix in watercolor, it's still going to take you 20 minutes, 25 minutes to get to the hospital that's on the west end of the county. So I don't think that talking about this road is the most important thing that we could be talking about. We need to be talking about stations on 38, and we need to be talking about a hospital on this end of the county, away from the west end. And we really do need to keep this county beautiful. It's the most beautiful place that I've ever been. I've been to beaches all over the world. I've been a ton of places, and yeah, it sounds like I'm just trying to be cool, but still, literally, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been. And we have to do everything that we can to keep it the most beautiful place.
Sir? Good afternoon, Ryan, Cobb, Fire Chief, Southwell Fire District. I already provided my comments, as the presenter said earlier, a few years back, so I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. Paraphrase what you wanted, there's not to verify some things here. First, I want to begin by acknowledging this is a complex issue. We all understand the environmental sensitivity to this, and no matter what side that you're on, we as a community have to come together to figure this out. My obligation today is to convey to you my concerns as your emergency service professional and perspectives. You assistants and stakeholders and commissioners are informed of the effects of both our current roadway infrastructure as well as what's being proposed and the influence it may have on the emergency services. I just want to talk about a couple of things. There's been a lot of talk about a fire station being placed somewhere along 30A. While that certainly may be part of a long-term, multi-pronged approach to resolving part of this issue, I want to make sure that I convey that part of our delivery of services is not solely about where that fire station is located. It's about the interconnectivity of roadways, the ability to assemble multiple fire stations at a given location at eight minutes. So having only one way in or one way out over a stretch of 6 miles makes that very challenging. The last point I want to make, every one of us who've been here for a few years, we had a rather significant wildfire back in 2020. That wildfire, we lost 50 structures, and that happened in the middle of the COVID shutdown. We had stay-at-home orders, we had no visitors here, the beaches were closed. I feel relatively confident telling you we would have casualties if we went in the normal day. We experienced no notice of that like that. I'll just tell you as your fire chief, that's what keeps me awake at night. It's not the hurricanes that I heard folks talk about, because that's a planned event that typically you have days to plan for to get folks out of here. It's the no notice wildland fire event that happens right now. That you have to move a large amount of people in safety. That's the part of concern. That's really what I want to say. Thanks, Chief. Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Lauren Scott. Thank you all for your time. I'd like to stay on topic if I could about the reason why we're here tonight. Just be very logical. It seems like we do have a very serious issue with traffic and public safety. That's really important. And so I'm in favor of D2. I think it's very negligent to just ignore it altogether and not do anything. I think D2 provides a solution for all while just staying on path and we can work with a solution to help with any wildlife issues. I think that D2 is the most logical approach, and I think that, again, it would be negligent not to do anything at all and just say no.
Ma'am? Sir?
Hello, good evening, commissioners and neighbors. I just wanted to throw comments in real quick that I am in favor of the road to the D2 option. But I wanted to maybe just point out a couple of things that highlighted in the presentation. And one is that there seemed to be a survey that was conducted, and 700, almost 700 respondents were surveyed, and it seems to be about a 50-50 decision between for and against. So that would seem to be enough evidence to proceed with more of the survey to determine which road we need to follow in that line. I would like to say that I don't think the road in general is the panacea that's going to solve all of our problems. And what frustrates me as a citizen more than anything is inaction. Even if we make a step in what might be ultimately the wrong direction, I think that's better than doing nothing at all. Only second most is just the divisiveness that comes out of these conversations. We've got to do something about the fact that we have a development footprint this big and the capacity to support that development this big. And as my friend, Ms. Morano mentioned, who I have the utmost respect for, St. Joe is bringing 300,000 people to our area. And those people are going to find their way to 38 regardless if there's a road there or not. So, we've got a problem. The time to solve this problem without any more development was 20 years ago, and that time has passed. We've got to do something. So I would just encourage the leadership to, do what you can to bring the community together, like meetings like this. And, neighbors, I would encourage you to compromise. Nobody wants to be here. I don't mean here tonight, but nobody wants to be in a position of having a development footprint that's way outside of our capacity. But if we don't do anything, it's only going to get worse because the train is running down the tracks with a full testing. We got to do something. So thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take these last two and then we'll close public comments.
Lisa Vega, BEIGA, just jump to the end. There's ways that we can address this. First, I have a few questions. One, and I don't expect an answer, I just want to put it out there. So when Atkins mentioned the study of traffic pattern, was that when tourists are in town or is that when it's just local residents? Because I certainly don't have a traffic issue when it's quiet. So that makes a big difference. We can eliminate our short-term rentals. So we have a lot of communities around us, certain counties in the state of Florida, where their short-term rental ordinance, they decided to cut back how many homes could actually be a rental. Instead of 4,000 rentals, they only have 183 now. You got to file for a certificate. So just like you go out and get your Brighton Beach driving permit, you will do the same thing for rental. That would solve a lot of this. A lot of these people are not full-time residents. Back to the survey. Of the survey, and I know Mr. Wilson mentioned it, how many of those who responded to the survey were homesteaded South Walton residents? Not somebody with UNIAC, not somebody that lives in Atlanta and has a property here for the rental. How many of those people were homesteaded South Walton residents? That makes a huge difference. The fencing, back to the traffic pattern with the animals. One, I go through that Point Washington State Park. I'm assuming I would be able to use that entire park. I'd have to jump a fence now, jump a road. I think there's ways we need to look at this. And Commissioner McCormick, remember the video is now recirculating when you were running for election, no bill in Point Washington State Park. So I really think we need to take a look at this, who's really for it, from South Walton homestead perspective, and when it's just the residents, and potentially look at other ways to reduce the traffic, which is reduce the number of rentals we have. I know everyone here who rents might not like that, but for a resident who doesn't rent, I think we can do that.
Thank you, ma'am.
C-Y-N-D-E, last name is Y-O-S-H-I-K-A-W-A. Just wanted to say real fast, I've lived here since 1995, and I think that all of us know that drive on any of the connector roads that already exist. Once you get to 98, you can barely even turn on the 98, even when the light is in your favor. Traffic on 98, oh wow. A lot of times people turn left or turn right on 98 or just sitting in the middle of the intersection. Another connector road is not gonna help the situation at all. 98 is stacked up. Emergency services can't get to the hospital because of 98, not because of 38. The other thing that I'd like to mention is the best way to alleviate traffic is to provide public transportation. So the big cities don't have any parking, they have public transportation. Many it will even help the quarter from 331 going south. So I think that's where the money should be going, I don't think the border should be disturbed, but I also don't think that from a safety perspective, the connector and the additional connector road is not going to help getting the see facility because of that.
Thanks, ma'am. We're going to close public comment, and I would ask the board for a motion.
Like to make a motion for no build, and the reason for that is I don't believe that opening that road is going to increase the emergency services because the road is going to be just as packed as all the other roads are. And unless it's dedicated only to emergency services, I don't think it's going to be of any benefit. I also believe that the issue about the schools and turning left, well, anyone coming from Miramar Beach going to that school has to turn left as well. So I really don't think that that's an issue that is deciding factor on this road. And I find it interesting that we think that little fencing along the side is going to ensure no development. I don't think those little fences are going to do much of anything. I think that that we need to, if anything at all, just allow emergency vehicles or ask St. Joe to dedicate their property for emergency vehicles. But I do not think we need to build on this road, and I'd like to make that motion.
On the floor, we have a second. We have a second. Motion dies for lack of a second. Any further motions?
I make a motion that we continue on with D3.
Well, D2, you mean?
D2, I'm sorry. And the second part of this motion, as funding becomes available. I was in 2016, I was at the Seagrove Baptist Church on Sunday. A friend of mine invited me down there. A guy had a bad medical issue. Fault of the chief, in fact, the chief wasn't the chief, but no fault of South Walton Fire Department. It took 45 minutes to get there. And I know the chief has had problems like that with the fire trucks and with the ambulance. It is a public safety issue with me. One gentleman said, the people are going to find 38, regardless of where they live. So I make that motion.
I have a motion on the floor. We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board?
This is good people, South Walton. That's all we do. That's what I didn't have. Since I have the only commissioner called out the name on this, let me respond to something.
Batteries are dead.
I made a commitment to help preserve our conservation lands. And I said on numerous boards, I can't tell you how much time I have spent in that purpose. But another weight on my shoulder is the safety and welfare of our citizens and our church. And I think that trumps and needs to be a priority. One thing I am concerned about this motion, and I'll say this to the ones that's in favor. I personally don't think the county's in a financial state to move forward with this. So I have on my desk over, $300 million worth of improvements we need to do in infrastructure. And I just don't think that we as a county are in a position financially. So a lot of my decision here forward will be about the finances. But for us to connect the road, I believe it's a public safety issue, and that's why I have such a motion.
As I stated when I made my motion, I think that the emergency vehicles would have a much quicker, easier access to and from 30A and 98 if it was not a road that was open to the public. That's why I made that motion, because that road open to the public is not going to be any different than what they're doing right now, fighting traffic. And I personally received tons of emails from those of you that did not want this road. And I do not believe that I received any from anyone that did want the road. So I am trying to stand behind the citizens of this county and do the right thing. And I wish that my fellow commissioners would as well.
All due respect, I've been a firefighter and a law enforcement officer in this county, trying to respond to people in desperate need of our services. And I'm telling you from that personal experience is where I believe we need this. So I think unless you have been in that position or have a family member that minutes made a difference in life, I just don't think that's fair.
I have been in that position. As a matter of fact, my mother had a stroke in my living room and I had to call an ambulance. So yes, I have been in that position. And I do understand the importance of time. And that's why I'm saying we don't need a road that's open to the public. We need a road that's just open to fire, the ambulance and emergency vehicles. That's what I'm saying. Just something that only they could use, not that the public would use, because it's not going to do them any good to be stuck in traffic on another road. That's my point.
I think, well, I certainly understand. While I understand your position, and I certainly understand the public safety aspects of it, I would say that if we build such a road, we're building that road with tax dollars. And if I were a parent trying to get to Dune Lake Elementary School and I was having to drive all the way to Inlet Beach to get to the school, because we had built a $1 million worth of road that I couldn't use, I would not like that. So I think that we have to make sure that we balance out all the rights of these citizens plus the rights of public safety. I think that I understand Commissioner McCormick's financial hesitation, but I believe the motion was that we would proceed when funding is available. So I think we would, I think that cures that problem. Bottom line is the road should have probably been built 20 years ago. It wasn't. It's not it's not fair to tell the citizens in Seacrest and Camp Creek and Alice Beach that, everybody else has a road every 2 miles and they don't get one. And, there is a way to do this responsibly. There's a way to do this that, first of all, the development thing is, I put little stock in because anybody who's trying to get any land out of the state of Florida knows good and well you're not doing it. If you do it, which on the rare occasions is work, you have to give them 1.5 to 2 times the value of the property to get them anywhere. So there's never going to be any development on this property one way or the other. But the power line easement right down the middle of where we're talking about going, and there's a huge water main on that property. It's already disturbed. It's already been traversed by truck maintain those properties. And so this would just be to provide a public safety access to some citizens who don't have it right now. I think Mr. Brooks's testimony regarding his neighbor was very compelling. And just to discount people's lives cavalierly is not something I would do. I think we need to be very careful about that. So I'm planning on supporting the motion, and let's see what we can do to move forward.
I've not discounted anyone's life, first of all.
I didn't mean you did. It came out that way, I thought.
I believe it would be better if we just had emergency services use that app without building on it. But and I just wanted to sort of support people as well. And I think, thank God that we did not build that 20 years ago. If I'm not mistaken, the study has been going on since 2016, is that correct? 2018, okay. Quite a long time, and I wish that we could protect it from happening.
I will say that there was a survey done by the TPO. It was the overwhelming response was to build it. The last county survey was 50-50. So the argument being made that I'm supporting the citizens plays that way just as much as it plays the other way. And at the end of the day, we have to try to decide what's in the best interest of the citizens of the county, and that's what I intend to do. Any further comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. I'm going to do a roll call vote on the motion. So Commissioner Anderson?
Yay.
Commissioner Johns?
Nay.
Commissioner McCormick? And I vote yea, that's 3-1 in favor. With no further business being in order, I will adjourn the meeting.